My name is Chris Moore. I'm the CEO of Domino's Pizza in the UK and Ireland and now Germany. The main responsibilities are to make sure that the company delivers value to shareholders and sustainable growth in shareholder value, and also to make sure that we have franchisees that represent the brand in the best possible way day in, day out. In terms of how business has performed since between 2006 and 2010, we've been looking at double-digit increases in overall sales and also in like-for-likes. And in fact, the overall like-for-like sales increase compounded over the last 10 years has been in double-digit territory as well. I think the main reasons for this performance over the last 5 years is really the fact that we've established a vision for the company, we set out a focus for the company, and everybody has got around that particular vision. So when we came up with a vision back in the end of 2005 to launch it from the beginning of 2006, we communicated that vision not just to the franchisees, but also to the managers, to everybody internally. And then on top of that, we incentivized all those groups to make sure that they actually were focused on delivering the long-term plan, which was to get to the end of Vision 2010 with a very different looking company, certainly very different figures that we were seeing in 2006. The principal elements of the vision were really focusing on three things. The main three areas of focus were product, and an adherence to the quality of the product and never cutting corners on the quality of the ingredients that we put on our pizzas. The second area was on service, and massively revolutionizing what we were doing in service terms and making sure that we stood out as a leader in the market. And the third thing was people. And people, not just the quality of the people that we had here in the support office, but most importantly, getting the right franchisees in the right places within their different markets. The first thing we did with product quality right from the outset was actually to do nothing. And what I mean by that is that we didn't actually want to change the formula. We didn't, especially when the world was beginning to go through recession and commodity prices were beginning to increase. The temptation would have been far too great to start cutting corners. And what we didn't want to do was any of that. In fact, we wanted to improve the quality of the ingredients of the pizza. But at its base, we didn't want to alter the dough formula. Very easy to do, very tempting to do. You didn't want to have cheese which had other ingredients in it. We wanted to make sure we had 100% mozzarella cheese. We wanted to make sure that we had tomato sauce that wasn't in sort of concentrate form. We wanted to really stick to the knitting when it came to product quality. The key elements of service was really, again, just focusing on the basic. So all we did was actually to say, well, we know that we can actually shave off seconds here and seconds there. All it takes is focus. And more importantly, going back to the whole incentivizing story, we knew that if we focused, if we actually got into the stores some way of showing the comparison of the operational timings of that store versus the operational timings of another group of stores, or indeed the whole system, then there would be that sort of peer-to-peer competition, and that would actually start driving delivery times down. And that is exactly what happened. So you look at the door time. So what are the key points within that? It's how quickly you attack the phones. It's how quickly you take the order. It's how quickly you make the pizza, how quickly you load the pizza into the oven. You've got a kind of like a sort of 5 or 6 minute fixed block of time there, which is the bake time. And then it's really down to how long the actual pizzas remain in the store underneath the hot lamps waiting to be delivered. And all those processes, you can focus on cutting them down to bring the out-the-door time down. Now, we thought back in 2005, when the out-the-door time was 17 minutes, we gave ourselves an objective, a target, to get to 2010 and get that out-the-door time down to 14 minutes. A 3-minute difference. It may not sound like a lot of time, but actually it's 10% of an entire process which had been fine-tuned since 1960. So, and the amazing thing is that when we put in that comparison of out-the-door times between one store and the next and a group of other stores and in a particular franchise, that's when the out-the-door time started to plummet. So in fact, our 14-minute goal was beaten, I think it was in 2008, and then in 2009 we got out-the-door times down to 13 minutes and 13 minutes again in 2010. With regards to people, and in particular the franchise community, what we saw in 2005 is that there were just too many franchisees. We had 157 franchisees, which meant that on average they had 2.7 stores each. And that store to franchisee ratio, when we came to do Vision 2010, we said, okay, that is a key metric because we want that number to improve for a number of different reasons. It makes it easier for us, so we don't have to deal with as many franchisees, but also it makes for stronger, more financially sound businesses that are actually out there and portraying the Domino's Pizza brand. What you don't want to have is a lot of single store franchisees that may be tempted to cut corners, etc., etc., etc. So we said, okay, the store to franchisee ratio is a key metric. 2.7 stores to each franchisee in 2005. We need to get that number down. And we announced that to the franchisees. We said that by 2010, we wanted to reduce the number of franchisees and increase the number of stores. And you can imagine that caused a certain amount of consternation within the franchise community, but it was really about making sure we had people that could step up to the plate, that could actually focus on the service times, that could focus on product quality and do everything else that we wanted to do. Indeed, a number of franchisees in the first 2 months of Vision 2010 actually put out the white flag and said, you know what, we're never going to be able to do this. And they sold their stores and moved on. And then when we get to the end of 2010, we've got 133 franchisees. So we've got an average store to franchisee ratio of 5, which is exactly what we wanted to get to. But that number can also improve as we look forward to 2015. Our e-commerce offering really started in 1998. And when we started working with interactive TV, so in fact the first e-commerce sales that we were doing were actually where people were using their remote controls to actually order pizzas over the TV. And then from that, of course, we realized that we had the system in place to have online ordering. Back then, of course, it was still dial-up connections, so very different to what it is now with broadband, always on. And right at the beginning, what we did was to really get Domino's presence in anything that was to do with e-commerce. Anything which had E on the front of it, we wanted to be in there first. And then, of course, time changed, and we kind of took a step back and we said, well, now what we're going to do is we're only going to go with platforms that we know are actually going to get a good return on investment. So we went from really taking as much territory as we possibly could to actually then focusing on the things that were going to make sort of business sense. And again, by the time we got to 2005 and 2006, we kind of lost that sparkle when it came to actually jumping on new things and looking at new areas and new opportunities within that environment. So part of the Vision 2010 was to say, no, we're going to regain that particular lead in the market and make sure that if a new technology comes up, especially the new technologies that were beginning to surface with mobile technology, we said that's where we want to be. So, we really towards the end of that whole program, so 2009, 2010, we started to look at things like the iPhone app. We started to look at an app especially redesigned for BlackBerries. Then we got to the iPad app, and then the next stage we're going to go to Windows 7 to have an app for that, so that we dominate the area.